Okay, I want to start off by giving all praises to Yahweh, Ba'ashem, Yahushai, Ba'ashem, Rakat, Kwadash. Double honors to the apostles and elders of Great Millstone, who teacheth the Bible in 100% truth. And shalom to the hopeful elect of the 12 tribes of Israel, especially the 144,000, who consist of the Negroes, Latinos, and Native Americans in the land of the Americas, as well as the speckled bird, the Israelite foreigners living amongst the other nations. Shalom to you. Okay, I'm looking at this today, Jeremiah 16 and 16. You know what it has been, yet again, making a video now, and it's, I don't know, 10, 11 days since I managed to make a video. And I mentioned, a couple of weeks ago, I said, well, probably about 3 weeks ago, I said that, like, at the minute I'm going through a situation where the problems just keep coming, they just keep coming, they just keep coming. None of the problems are overwhelming, but from week to week there's a different issue. And the last video I did, I spoke about I had this backache and I was unwell, and so in the last 10 days I got over that, and then lo and behold, another problem. And so I've had no internet connection for the last like 9 days, 10 days. And then I've been ringing them up and sort of complaining about it and saying, what's going on, and they've been saying, oh, we're trying to fix it. It's going to be fixed by Friday, which is today. But what's been happening, it's been coming on and off. So like I get to the point where it comes on and I realize, oh, the Wi-Fi's on, so I start looking, and half an hour later it cuts off again. It's been doing that on and off for like 9 days, and then at night time, in the evenings you just can't get anything. And then even my phone was going real slow. At one point, I tried to hotspot the phone to the computer to send that signal there. I mean, trying to watch videos was just ridiculous. It's like going back into the 90s. You click to download the page, you go make a cup of tea, you come back, and the page is still halfway downloading. So, like I say, I've just been going through that little situation at the minute, week after week. It's just the next one, and next one, and next one. Also, I've had a big problem on the wife's car this week, so I've had to do a lot of work on that. It's not running right. Something happened to it like a year ago. I kind of patched it up, kept the car going for another year, but that part's finally failed. It's a lot of work getting that out of the car, and I could have really done with the help of having the internet as well. Yet again, while I was doing that, but yet again, no internet. But it is what it is. But I've come round to the internet's back on today. I really don't know which really way to go, but it's coming to my mind is Jeremiah 16 and 16. It says, "Behold, I will send for many fishers, saith Yahweh." It says, "And they shall fish them, and after will I send for many hunters." And it says, "And they shall hunt them from every mountain and from every hill and out of the holes of the rocks." So, just to break it down, so you got the Most High sending for fishers, and I will send for many fishers, saith Yahweh, and they shall fish them. And that is speaking of the prophets, speaking of the people who, the Book of Revelation speaks of 144,000. So you have these various different prophets out there, people who have the Holy Spirit, the truth, mainly 100% truth. You wouldn't have the truth unless it was 100%. If you had 99% truth, then you don't actually have truth, because truth is all and complete. If I give you the truth, then I give you all. If I give you 99%, then I haven't given you all, so I haven't given you the full truth. So you have these people out here today in this time, and you find those various people out on the internet, out on the streets, on the highways and the byways, and also on the internet. And it says, "I will send for many fishers." So these prophets are fishing. And what are they fishing? They're fishing for the elect. When you go to the book of Revelation, chapter 13, it speaks of two different beasts. And the second beast is a beast that rose up out of the sea. And today, you translate that to what you see around you today, and that beast would represent EU and the NATO. And America is that whore spoken of in Revelation 17, which rides said beast, to manipulate it, to make it, control it, and make it, to use the power of it for its own benefit. But this beast rises up out of the sea. I'm not going to go to it, but that's Revelation chapter 13, and the sea represents the people. So you can see how now, the scriptures, allegories, parables, secrets, dark sayings, hidden messages, coded language, and sometimes the sea will represent the people. Obviously, sometimes the sea represents the sea. It depends on what you're reading at the time. And so behold, I will send for many fishers. So these prophets, mainly through the internet, they go out and they preach this word to, the Most High obviously has the elect, the particular group of people, a remnant of the nation of Israel, according to the Most High. There's only 18 nations on this planet Earth. Whatever you want to call yourself, it doesn't really matter. You can call yourself this, you can believe that, you can do what you want, but when you die, you all face the same Most High. And when you face the same Most High, this message goes out to all 9 billion people on the planet. You come to face with one particular power. So all that you believed in, what you thought, what you took pride in, it goes out the window. And so there are 18 nations on this planet Earth, according to the Most High. And his chosen nation are the nation of Israel, spoken of in the Bible. And out of that, you then have a remnant, a small group, if you like, a particular portion of that nation, which are going to receive this truth in these latter days and be delivered on the day of the Lord. In the meantime, you'll have many people that will come into the truth and go out, and they were never actually predestinated to be part of that elect. So the prophets go out there, we preach this word through the internet, mainly to reach all parts of the globe, because that's where the people are, and the people represent the sea. So we fish amongst them for the elect. But it says, but after that, it doesn't say that, but and after will I send for many hunters. So once the fishing is done, you have, destruction. The prophets always come out before the destruction of a nation, or a kingdom or an empire, and it's no different today. And this rule that is about to go down represents the last rulership before the kingdom of heaven. The kingdom of heaven being if you like, a government organization, a governmental structure on the planet Earth. So the prophets fish for the people. This destruction comes, which is we're speaking of, is coming very soon. Donald Trump, he's the last president of America, and so you got to then take into consideration if he's the last president of America, we don't have very long to go. Now you may not believe what I'm saying. You may say, oh well, he may not be the last president of America. Well, this is when we're going to find out, who the prophets are. The scriptures talk about, then it shall be known, that there have been a prophet amongst them, and then obviously at that point it will be revealed. That's when the truth gets revealed, and so then you realize who was speaking truth, somebody that was speaking 100% truth. But then, you see, comes the destruction, comes the deliverance of the remnant of the children of Israel, a particular portion. I'm not going to go into that into great detail, but then you have this moment after that where order needs to be restored on earth. Now, like I just said, the kingdom of heaven is a kingdom which is, when you read through the scriptures, you're reading of this kingdom of heaven that you're trying to reach to. That kingdom of heaven is not in the sky. There is a kingdom of heaven in the sky. The Most High's got his kingdom and so on and so forth. But when you read through the Bible and you read of this particular kingdom of heaven that you're trying to reach through salvation and so on and so forth, Ultimately, in layman's terms, you, if you're going to go according to what the scriptures are telling you correctly, then you know what you're waiting on is the day of the Lord. You're waiting on everybody to be judged, and you're hoping that you're one of those that will be delivered, kept alive, and then able to go into the kingdom of heaven, which is a kingdom on the planet, but alive and without having to go through the second death. Obviously, at that moment, Apostle Paul spoke about being changed within the twinkling of an eye. The deliverance will come through so-called UFOs, tractor beams, lifting up members of the elect into this particular so-called UFO, which is a chariot, what the scriptures talk of, the chariots of Israel. And then at that moment, these members of the elect, you have this moment where they're changed, their physical makeup, the type of body that they have. You still have the same spirit, the same soul will be you, but everything, your flesh, your body changes, and that obviously changes into a more godlike state. So then you would likely to have spiritual power at that moment, so on and so forth. And once we're changed, we become clean. You're not going to arrive on the chariot with filthy Israelites, and when I say filthy, I don't mean physically. I mean spiritually. You're gonna be clean. You would have been washed at that point. You would have received the salvation, beamed up into the so-called UFO, changed in that moment in the twinkling of an eye, which it takes to go from the ground up to that so-called UFO. And then so once you arrive in the UFO, you're pure, because now you're able to keep the law. You've been changed. You have this spiritual body. You let go of that fleshly chain, and it's now impossible for you to commit sin. So you can't die, and that's how you can be in the presence of Yahweh Shai. You like, sometimes when I think about that, then I have to think about obviously how I came to the truth, and I came through having a visitation from an angel, but that particular angel is actually Yahweh Shai. So I say angel sometimes just to kind of, just to talk about it, but if I'm honest, obviously that angel was Yahweh Shai. So then you think of the moment he came and he showed me the bits of the future, showed me a bit of the past, showed me all these different things that the world wouldn't necessarily understand. But then you realize, I'm actually in your presence. Like, I'm actually here. You're there. I can see you. And so obviously that alone, you got to think it 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 penetrates. It penetrates. So like you might walk down the street, and then there's somebody on the other side of the road shouting at you, shouting abuse, and it won't penetrate you. You ignore it. You keep walking, and you say, well, when I turn the corner, I won't hear those people anymore. But when you're in the presence of Yahweh Shai, you're gonna feel it, because he's at that high spiritual state. So that's why we have to be changed to go up there, to be in that presence. As we are now, we're we're just like this in these fleshly bodies. The spirit of Yahweh Shai will come to you, and it's a lot. It's I don't know how to describe it, but it hits you deep. So you're gonna know about it, and you're not gonna forget about it, and it's there. So you imagine now when the scriptures talk about the whole world seeing Yahweh Shai when he appears in this chariot. Every eye shall see, and then obviously he's going to pierce. I think some of the scriptures, I can't remember which one, talks about piercing, so that you've got this moment where this holy presence appears on the planet, in the sky, and you can physically see it. And that alone is going to be too much for people to take. So you're going to have weeping, gnashing of teeth, men's hearts failing them for the fear of what they've seen. You know, they're not. I remember before, a couple of months ago, I brought out a video of the young girl, and she had the dream, and she said that people were looking at Yahushua, and his eyes were their eyes were bleeding. These Edomites were looking at Yahushua, and the eyes were bleeding. She had that dream. So this is, you know, you got to realize what type of level of power you're dealing with. It's like, and then to be in the presence of it is another thing. You know, he's also, last time Yahushua came on this earth, came as a man, and next time he will not meet thee as a man. So you got to then think, yeah, he's coming with that spiritual aura, and that spiritual aura is a lot to take on board. You can't just ignore it. It will penetrate your soul. Just being in the presence. You know, you think when you're going to get up onto the chariot and you're going to see him, and what type of emotion would you be in? You couldn't even, you know, you could say this, that, and the other, but when you get there, your emotions will be a bit haywire because there's so much going on, and then what you'll be trying to take in at that moment is just another thing. It's just the whole thing. You can't actually take anything from the world to compare it to and describe it to you. That's why I'm sort of struggling for words. So at this moment, then we get changed. You know, you got the elect. They'll watch the destruction from this so-called UFO. They'll watch down on the earth. World War III will finish. Babylon the Great, America will be destroyed, and then order has to be restored on the planet Earth. And this is it's got to be one of my favorite bits that I'm looking forward to. It says, and after will I send for many hunters, and they shall hunt them from every mountain and from every hill and out of the holes of the rocks. The holes of the rocks represent the dumbs, the deep underground. I can't remember what's deep underground nuclear base or something like that, where these elites will hide during World War III, and some of them will a lot of them will survive. You know, these elites, the higher up you are on the hierarchy, you know, leading all the way up to the banking elites and so on and so forth, and you know, the higher up you are on the totem pole, the more likely you are to survive, and that's okay because you know we will. It says we should hunt you out of the holes of the rocks, but that hunting comes with a spiritual power. You know, my wife, when I had the visitation of Yahushua in 2018, in the same week, that was like on the Tuesday, and then like on the Sunday, my wife, or the Saturday, my wife had a dream. And so she was like, oh, you know, your eyes were red and you had to go. And, you know, you can only go through, you know, you can only work things out through the spirit. So, you know, at that moment, there's only one thing that kind of comes to my mind. And 7 years later, it's still the same thing. You know, this is, you know, Lord willing, I'm of that number. You know, Yahushua will give us that power. So you got to run around earth with your spiritual power and whip these punks, these other nations into shape. And this is going to be a great time, because you know, you think of all the shit that we take and all the stuff that we take of these people, all the things that we have to deal with and go through. You know, you've got like, think about, like, you got the kingdom of heaven, which is a future kingdom, a future empire. And so in it, you're going to have a hierarchy. You're going to have Yahushua, King David. You've got the 12 apostles, 144,000. So you've got all these great men. And those great men, a lot of them are alive right now. But they're living very basic lifestyles. They're having to take shit off their bosses. They're going to having to pay for this and pay tax on that. And they're getting charged with this. And the government tries to F them up with that. And then, you know, their wife's talking shit. And fucking the friends talk shit and whatever, and in the end you just want to headbutt everybody. But that's what the world's doing to you. That's what it's doing to you. But it's okay, because you know we know we're holding on for something, so that stops us going into that. But you know, you actually check it, and then you think it's like the people now. You look at Donald Trump, you look at the King of England, so on and so forth, and you can imagine them living as paupers. Now, I'm not saying that, you know, the elect or the 144,000 are paupers, but they're at the bottom end of society. They have to go to work. They have to answer to somebody. They have to get up because someone else wants them there at that time. If they don't feel like going in, it's a problem for them. You know, like I say, their wives talk shit to them, if they've got wives. Everybody's trying to hit them with something, and you just, this world is designed like that. It's called a rat race. You know, you live in a world, and society is described as a rat race. You know, you don't know, where do you read the Babylonians? Oh, it was a rat race. Oh, the ancient Greeks, the rat race of a people. No, but this time that we're living in, the second leg of the Roman Empire, and especially in these latter days, it's a rat race. They call it a rat race. If I say to you, you live in a rat race, it's not a surprise to you. So what kind of life is that? Living in a rat race, you know, chasing each other around like rats. That's all we're doing, on top of each other, living in cities. You know, 25 people living in one building, all on top of each other. That's how like rats live. They're all on top of each other, climbing over each other, crawling in and out of little spaces. Let me just get there. Let me just get there. That's what it's like growing up in a city. We've been through the slave trade, you know, before all these various things. Even a lot of that is still in the minds of our people. It's quite fresh in the memory. You may have grandparents or whatever, or parents or whoever been in, you know, been in the back end of that hardcore slavery. So there's a lot of things that make us bitter as a people. And then, but then we get this great moment where the Most High just unleashes the chains, just takes off the chains, says, "Yep, here's your spiritual power. You're cool. You're an Israelite. You're perfect. You can't sin. I've delivered you. Now just go and put the earth back in order." And that is going to be one hell of a moment. You've got Leviticus here, 26 and 7. So Leviticus 26. 7 and 8, you got Leviticus 26 and 36. So what it is split. So verses 7 and 8 will come under what, you know, if we were to be obedient to the Most High. It says here, Leviticus 26 and 7 says, "And he shall chase your enemies, and they shall fall before you by the sword." It says, so verse 8, "And 5 of you shall chase 100, and 100 of you shall put 10,000 to flight." You know, imagine 100 man putting 10,000 people to flight. You know how serious that is. You got 100 people compared to, outnumbered 10 to 1, but just your presence will put them to flight. It says, "And your enemies shall fall before you by the sword." So you know they won't bring this up in the Christianity, in, you know, the Church of Christianity, the religion of Christianity. They teach you the Bible. They teach you want to make it to the kingdom of heaven. But what they're not telling you is that when you make it to the kingdom of heaven and you become perfect, like you want to be, the Most High is going to put you in a position where you will chase your enemies, and they shall fall before you by the sword. So imagine the Christian church. Imagine if the Christianity was the elect. Imagine that. And then you got people like Vocab Malone and everybody's grandmother getting beamed up, and then they become these hunters. Come on, man. Who are they going to chase? Who are they going to chase? Vocab Malone and everybody's grandmother chasing you up, chasing up the world and putting them into place. All of a sudden they're chasing their enemies and everybody's falling, you know, by the sword. They don't teach that because they don't teach you the truth. And you know, these old women and Vocab Malone, these people aren't of the elect, and whoever else, you know, these pastors on YouTube, fly-by-night pastors, charlatans, you know, with their congregations of thousands or whatever else, you know, they're all gonna have to be put into order. And you've got like these Muslims, you know, they're hardcore. You think about this, right? So you've got like a Christian in the Western world. I was talking about this last time, the difference between the East and the West. So then you've got this like Muslim from the East, right? And so then the Christian, you know, even though he believes in God, then the science still helps him. So then all of a sudden, science is there to try and prove that God's not there. So what it is that Christians are wishy-washy. How many times do you pray? But once before you go to bed, once a week. You go to church once a week and you pray. So then you go to this Muslim dude. Now he's God-fearing more than the Edomite. That's why in his religion they designed that you got to pray 5 times a day. But we know it's false. We know they're praying to a false idol, a false spirit. And we know because of that, they're now praying to that spirit 5 times a day. That's why these spirits are so locked onto these Muslim people. Because they got a religion, just like the Christians got a religion, but they go hardcore at it. The Christians don't go that hardcore. And so the fact that they go hardcore, both of them are worshipping false idols, false left-hand spirits, deceptive spirits, evil spirits. But now the evil spirit is the word evil is to bring a bad time. You say, I'm not having a good time. I believe in Jesus. I'm having a good time. Yeah, but the bad time comes on the day of judgment. So you go to a Muslim dude, you try and get him out of that religion, you won't, because he's praying 5 times a day. So 5 times a day, he's encouraging those demons and he's making them stronger in his mind. But they're going to have to be put in order. Everybody's going to have to be put in order. You've got all types of meatheads around the earth, these gangs and mafia and people that just don't take shit from anyone. You got certain parts of Russia. How would you go in there and take over certain parts of Russia and move people out of their land? So you can't do that, especially in the southern Russia. But we'll do that because it says here, and 5 of you shall chase 100, and 100 of you shall put 10,000 to flight, and your enemies shall fall before you by the sword. Just jumping down, I come back to Leviticus, but jumping down to Deuteronomy 32. And so, how should one chase 1,000 and 2 put 10,000 to flight? It says, except their rock has sold them. It says, and Yahweh has shut them up. So I'll come back to that again in a minute. I think that's Joshua 23:10. One man of you shall chase 1,000. It says, for Yahweh your power, he it is that fighteth for you. It says, as he hath promised you. Psalms 35:5 says, let them be as chaff before the wind. And it says, and let the angel of the Lord chase them, the angel of Yahweh chase them. So this is speaking of us, if we're in our right minds, if we're following the law like we should be. And that's not going to happen really until we get changed. But once we're in that state, we have that spiritual power, and that's when we'll be running people, running around the earth. If you can have 2 people. So what's it say? 10,000, 100. So 100 to 10,000. You go and send 500, 1,000 members of the elect. Don't forget, you'll have 144,000. You'll have, whoever else. So the most I could easily chuck 50,000 of those men, send you down into one part of the earth, and everybody's running scared. Shit, 50,000 Israelites just turned up. This is after the so-called UFO invasion, after Jacob's Trouble. This is after World War III and the destruction of America. And then these Hebrew Israelites turn up. You don't want the Hebrew Israelites to come around calling on Yahweh, Ba'ashim, Yahweh Shai. This is it. This is where we're at. This is where we're going to be at. That's going to be my catchphrase in that time, basically. And I'm ready. I'm ready to do what the Most High wants, which is put people in order. And we're gonna strike fear amongst them. In the days of Joshua, Rahab the harlot, she knew what time it is. I saw Hebrew Israelites. You don't want them to come around.
But then you go back to Leviticus 26:36. This is now becomes a consequence of disobedience. This is where we're at today. It says, and upon them that are left alive of you, I will send a faintness into their hearts, in the lands of their enemies. This is where we're at. We're in the lands of our enemies right now. This is in the sound of a shaken leaf shall chase them. It says, and they shall flee, as fleeing from a sword, and they shall fall when no one pursueth. So we're it's a it's a it's a tale of two sides. Um, like balance. You got left and right, the good, the bad, and at the minute we're taking the bad. But this role will be reversed, and it's going to be a great pleasure when the roles reverse. You can say, oh, would you want in the kingdom of heaven? I want 1,000 women. I want this. I want that. I want a whole country to myself, or whatever. I want this or that. That the thing that I want is this to give payback. You've got these Edomites. The last 500 years, they ran across the globe. They committed divide and conquer. They committed iconoclasm. They lied, and they're still to this day living living according to these lies, holding it up, being proud, and acting like they own the earth. At the same time, they've put it in a terrible state. They're ready to bring out this digital system. When that digital system comes out, and then you're really in prison. Then you're really in a worldwide prison. Imagine if they brought the MOTB out and there was no deliverance. What would you do? You'd be fucked. So it's going to be a great pleasure when Yahweh Bashim, Yahweh Shai reverses the tables, and gives us that task. We're going to be given that task to go around, and to put everybody in order. We will drag the elites out of the holes of the rocks, and we will make them bury dead bodies. That will be their first job. Put them to task and say there's a lot of bodies out here that need to be buried. Deuteronomy 32:30 says, how should one chase 1,000 and two put 10,000 to flight, except their rock has sold them? It says, and Yahweh has shut them up. So Deuteronomy, I've got it in the BBE here, just to make it a bit more easy to understand. It says, how would it be possible for one to overcome 1,000? It says, and two to send 10,000 to flight, if their rock had not let them go? It says, if the Lord had not given them up. So at the minute, up until now, the Most High gave us up. We lost all remembrance, and we've been scattered amongst these other nations, and we've had to deal with whatever they're throwing at us. But the tables are turning, and the Most High is bringing back our remembrance, through Yahweh Shai, through His blood and through the Holy Spirit, and it's now working on the hopeful members of the elect. Whoever they are, there is a group who are the elect, but they won't find out until that day. But in the meantime, Spirit will be working on their minds to open up their mind to this truth, to this understanding, in order to be prepared for that particular day, the day of the Lord. But it's also that the Most High, obviously, we gave us up, but He's obviously taken us back in. So like I say, the tables are going to turn, and there's going to be this great time of the minute you've built up all this anger, this frustration, and whatever you build up in this world. And really, if you think about it on a deeper level, we're all psychologically damaged by this world, because of some of the things that we've seen, or some of the things that we've witnessed, some of the way that the philosophies of this world, and some of the things that we have to go through, so on and so forth. These affect you, and so obviously we'll be changed. We'll be made pure. But then you have this time where you can then get obviously the kingdom of heaven, you can do that throughout, but obviously at the beginning, especially when it first switches round, it's going to be payback time. You see the Israelites rolling over the hill, and we're going to put 10,000 men to flight. chase them, put them in order. Like I say, you got all these different various religions around the world. A lot of them are hardcore. They're very militant. You know, especially in the Middle East, you've got a lot of militia, weaponry. You know, they have a belief in the Most High, but they carry weapons. Christians don't necessarily do that, and you know maybe some other religions around the world. But we're gonna have to put them in order. So you then think, what is the Most High gonna do? It's not gonna be, you know, this is the Most High's plan. It's the kingdom of heaven. So you're not gonna have a situation where there's a small sect, a small group of these people that still worship this and still believe that. That's not gonna happen. You're gonna have a planet, and on that planet, every single person that exists on that planet is going to know that the name of the Most High is Yahweh and his son is Yahweh Shai. And they're going to respect his laws and commandments. And we're going to be the ones, you know, Lord willing, that's going to make them do it. So you think now how joyful it is to be given that power, everything you're speaking of now, but then to be able to put it into action and say, well, listen, you lot better shape up, or you know, there's consequences on the way. You got the ancient prophets, they um, call fire from heaven. You had the ground opening up. Even in the time of Joshua, you had various acts. You got one where the hailstones came down on the enemy and killed them all, where they were getting chased. You've got even the walls of Jericho. So these people are going to fear. They're going to fear the Hebrew Israelites. You know, at the minute it's like, especially the last few weeks, it's like the Hebrew Israelites have become a laughing stock to sort of on the outside, the whole world. Everybody seems to be making these videos. Why I left Hebrew Israelites? Why this and why that? Nobody asked for your opinion. Do you see what I mean? So why, I'm not sitting here worried about these people's opinions, but yet they feel like they've got to tell me why they did this and why they did that, and they got to come out and make these videos, and it's all happening at the same time. Maybe there's a particular plan, a reason behind it. Maybe there's an agenda being pushed, but at the same time, the scriptures talk about the foolishness of preaching. It looks foolish to go out on the streets and preach, wearing sackcloth and standing, holding posts on the street corner. It looks foolish to make videos when, you're getting 10, 20, 100 views, 200 views. There's people out there getting 3.4 million and whatever else. So it looks foolish. And then at the same time, it is kind of foolish because really we don't need to do it. The Most High is going to wake up the elect and make everything happen anyway. Everything according to his word, he cannot lie, so he's going to make it come to pass. Just like he said, I'll give you up, but then I'll take you back in. If Yahushua goes, sheds his blood, so on and so forth. And that's why we're back in this state. So the Most High is going to wake up the elect himself. We just plant the seeds and water the seeds and so on and so forth. But obviously the Most High's part of his story is to have these men who go out and preach his word. And so then, therein lies the foolishness of preaching. But these people are going to find out. They're going to find out, why we're doing it. What we see, what we understand. You see, I see that. I see a time when the Most High gives us spiritual power, goes out there and tells us go and put them into, kick them into shape, and that's going to be a great, great time. It's something to look forward to, that you can hold on to. But yeah, how could it be possible for one to overcome 1,000 and two to send 10,000 in flight? It says if their rock had not let them go, if the Lord had not given them up. I was actually I was reading this earlier. I was looking at 21, from starting off at 21. It says they have given my honor to that which is not divine or godly. It's like the children of Israel. It says moving me to wrath with their false worship, all these different idols, different gods, different deities, and then even different men. Our people, they worship sports stars, music stars, so on and so forth, and they invest in that. So this is all false worship. It says, I will give their honor to those who are not a people. It says, moving them to wrath by a foolish nation. So it says, I will give their honor to those who are not a people. It says, moving them to wrath by a foolish nation. So are you not moved to anger by the things you see around you? The people around you are a foolish nation. I've always thought this. I said to myself, well, I got to go on the road and drive, and somebody tells me, oh, 70 miles an hour on the highway is a safe speed limit. Yeah, but maybe I'm safe and comfortable at driving at 80 or 90, but it's someone who with less ability than me who gets to call the shots and call the law. It's the same thing you get in sports. You get it all the time in sports. Like for example, in football, you'll have two football teams competing against each other, and then the referee's in the middle making decisions. Now, it used to be a big thing, not so much now, but people always used to say this referee's never played football, and you can see that because the decisions he makes on the pitch, he doesn't really understand, what's taking place. So he just says, "Oh, that was, by the book. That was this, and that was that." And that's what some of these players are looking at the ref. Sometimes they'll come off the pitch and say, "This ref's a fool," but they had to abide by, what he said. On that pitch, he was the Most High because he was in control of everything. He could, if he wanted, he could send you off, send you for an early shower. So it's the same thing, on a bigger scale. We live under these Edomites. We have to deal with this shit. 25 different genders. These bum bandits, they got legal rights. They're running around on the streets. These Edomites have created multiple religions through the false church. So we've got to deal with that shit. People talking all sorts of shit, saying about this God and that God, and talking about this and coming up with their stuff. This kind of stuff makes me angry. But obviously, it's not for us to go out there and release that anger physically. We go back to the scriptures, and then we wait. We understand what we're reading, and then we wait patiently. Because, like I say, what you're going to get on the other side, that spiritual power, that moment where you get told, go and put these people into shape, it's going to be, you're going to love it. So it's worth holding on now just for that alone. Before I came to the truth as well, I used to if someone started this, that, and the other, I used to just kick off. If someone kicked off with me, I would just kick off back and go, well, I'm going to just fight fire with fire. But you see, now I do a totally different thing. If someone kicks off, I just try to exit the situation and I tell them what they want to hear because I've realized, I don't need to sit here and fight flesh and blood. I'll fight you spiritually, and I know that you can get away with saying what you want to say and doing what you want to do now, but there's going to be that time when, Lord willing, we're of that number and we get given that power to run amok on the people. That's what we want to do. We want to, like I keep saying, kick them into shape, run amok on them. It says they have, given my honor to that which is not godly or divine. This is moving me to wrath with their false worship. I will give their honor to those who are not a people, moving them to wrath by a foolish nation. It says, for my wrath is a flaming fire, burning to the deep parts of the underworld. It says, burning up the earth with her increase. It says, and firing the deep roots out of the mountains. So, people might say, oh, hell, no, it's talking about, the scientists have told you inside the earth, you've got the core, the molten, the lava, and then obviously that's what gets released through volcanoes, eruptions. So for the Most High's anger is a flaming fire, burning to the deep parts of the underworld, burning up the earth with her increase and firing from the deep roots of the mountains. I will send a rain of troubles on them. My arrows will be showered on them. So this is where we're at, even though you're coming back to this remembrance and the Most High is turning things around. He's, how was it worded again? It's if their rock had not let them go, and if the Lord had not given them up. So the Most High gave us up, but now He's taken us back in. But we're still under the curses. So, we're still feeling it. And that's why, for example, I'm saying to you at the beginning of the video, yeah, this week that happened, and that week that happened, and next week this happened. It's been about 4 weeks. And I'm sitting there thinking, damn, every video I've done has been about 10 days, 12 days. I'm just like, it's just shit. But the car fucking broke down. Then I got ill. This has happened. That's happened. And in the middle of it, you still got to go work. And then, Esau is just on at you. You're 5 minutes late. Oh, you're late. So you've got all that pressure going on. It's a headache. Why do you have to live like this? And now you've got this impending MOTB, impending doom. And like I said, if it weren't for a deliverance after that, what would you do? The MOTB would come, Jacob's trouble. Everybody, the world would be going crazy over this MOTB. You wouldn't want to take it, or you'd have to take it to be in the system because there's no deliverance. And then you're just trapped. You're just trapped in Esau, just a slave. You wouldn't even want to have children after that because it's the only way you could exit this freaking system. But the most, I can still throw your spirit back into someone else's body. And then you'd have to go through it all again. So I've lost my place. Where was I? 21. It said, I will send a rain of troubles on them. It says, my arrows will be showered on them. So this is what we go through, week on week, day on day, month on month, year on year. We've got problems. But we also got the truth. And we know there's going to be that turnaround. Verse 24 says, they will be wasted from need of food and overcome by burning heat and bitter destruction. It says, in the teeth of beasts I will send on them. It says, with the poison of the worms of the dust. Outside they will be cut off by the sword, and in the inner rooms by fear. Death will take the young man and the virgin, the baby and at the breast, and the grey-haired man. And don't forget, Esau is that, that nation of fierce countenance with a strange tongue that, cares for not young or old. He's that man. And that's exactly what it's showing you here. It says, I said I would send them wandering far away, which, we got scattered. We ended up in the uttermost parts of the earth, which is America, way out there in the west. And I said I would make all memory of them go from the minds of men. So, people, they don't respect you out here. You don't look at you like, oh, you're the children of Israel, you're God's people, you're a peculiar, special people unto the Most High. They look at you like you're trash, and they treat you like trash. And that's why they're just, poking your shoulder. Every time you've done this, you've done that, you stay in line, do this, do that. And you think, well, this is just a prison. This is an Edomite prison, with a whole heap of bad stuff going on. The air's poisoned, the water's poisoned, the food's not even food anymore. I mean, you could say food isn't as nutritious as it used to be, but not only that, now they've replaced certain things in the food with chemicals. When I was young, I used to eat apples and I had no problem. And now if I eat an apple, my throat swells up. It starts swelling up. And then, so obviously I can't eat apples because it might happen too much and then I can't breathe. And then I looked into it and there was something that they took out. So not that they took out, they basically, because when they produce the apple, it's not as nutritious as it used to be. They now inject it with these whatever to replace these things. So when you're getting these so-called nutrients in your body, they're actually not real ones. They're man-made ones. I know it sounds a bit, but you got to do the research and look into it. That's the most basic way I can explain it. So that's why now I will have an allergic reaction to an apple, whereas when I was a kid, I didn't have that. It says, and this is down to Esau, those Edomites, these wicked people that don't care for young, for old. It says, I said I would send them wandering far away, and I would make all memory of them go from the minds of men. It says, but for the fear that their haters, uplifted in their pride, might say, our hand is strong. It says, the Lord has not done all this. It says, for they are a nation without wisdom. It says, there is no sense in them. Only, it says, if only they were wise, if only this was clear to them, they would give thought to their future. It says, how would it be possible for one to overcome 1,000 and two to send 10,000 in flight? It's if their rock had not let them go, and it's if their Lord had not given them up. And these Edomites did not consider their latter end. The Most High put us in this captivity, and they dealt with us in this particular last captivity more treacherously than anybody else, any other captivity. They took it overboard. It says, for their rock is not like our rock. It says, even our haters themselves being judges. For their vine is the vine of Sodom from the fields of Gomorrah. It says, their grapes are the grapes of evil, and the berries are bitter. But when you jump back to, it says, I will send a rain of troubles on them. It says, my arrows will be showered on them. But then you go to the top. This is obviously the Song of Moses, Deuteronomy 32, verse 1. Give ear, O heavens, to my voice. Let the earth take note of the words of my mouth. This is my teaching, or my doctrine, drops like rain, coming down like dew on the fields, like rain on the young grass, and showers on the garden plants. So, on one hand, you've got these problems raining down on you, and these issues, these different things. They, like I say, they may not be issues that overwhelm you, change your life, and put you into these drastic scenarios, but they're just constant, small little problems, small poking you on the shoulder, just poking you, just poking you, just poking you. If I keep poking you on the shoulder, I'm not hitting you, I'm not punching you, I'm not causing any big damage, but if I poke you on the shoulder 15, 20 times, 30 times, 40 times, at some point you're going to crack, you're going to snap. And that's what it's like living in this environment. But obviously it's our punishment. So at the same time, like I say, the Most High is putting us back into remembrance. So the doctrine is dropping like rain. The scriptures, the understanding is out there. You have the men with 100% truth, the men of GMS and the apostles and elders. And so that there you have in balance, you have two things happening at once. So I'm going to leave it right there, but I hope that was edifying. Until next time, all praises to Yahweh, Ba'ashim, Yahweh Shai, Ba'ashim, Rakat, Kwadash. Until next time, Shalom.